All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. It is almost 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, December 1st. Um, we have the first UFC card in 2 weeks coming up tomorrow night. And we're going to talk about it. Um, so, amidst all the Ian Gary slander, there are actually fights happening. Um, let's see here. I'm going to pull it up. We'll get right into it. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you see so fit. Love you guys for that. And here we go. We've got Fight Night Tsarukyan versus Dariush, or Dariush versus Tsarukyan. However you want to put that one. We've got some interesting fights on the card. Um, it's going to be a hard one to predict, to be honest. Um, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it our best freaking shot here. And with that, we will start off at the top of the card. We've got Veronica Hardy and Jamie Lynn Horth. Horth is a Canadian undefeated fighter who opened up. I think she was like -2 something, but now she's settled down to a -185. It's pretty even in terms of the odds. Um, she's pretty young in her career. She's only 6-0. Like, she's undefeated, but she's only had 6 pro fights. I don't know about her background before this. Huh. 2 wins over Lupi Godinez have aged well. In her amateur fights. That's interesting. Huh. I mean, interesting. What are her wins by? She's pretty varied. 3 by knockout, 2 by submission, 1 by decision. All decisions in her amateur fights. Huh. Interesting. Uh hmm. Making me wish I had watched some tape on her. Interesting. I feel like that Haley Cowan girl was pretty highly touted, but man, it's tough call. It is a tough call. My heart wants to go with Veronica Hardy. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's another part of me. But honestly, uh, on paper alone, I feel like Horth is probably going to continue her undefeated streak. Those wins over Lupi Godinez, I mean, they've aged well. We'll put it that way. They were a long time ago, but still. Um, let's see. Wellington Turman and Jared Gooden. Didn't know too much about Jared Gooden, and in looking into him previously, I mean, he had fought in the UFC and not done so well. They fed him to the sharks, but yeah, it's tough to say. Like Turman has looked really good in some fights, and other fights not so much. You know, so it depends on how Turman looks coming into this, but I favor him lightly to win in this one. I think yeah, the odds reflect that as well. Uh, Up next, so no, we went back a little too far. Adolfo Bellato and Ihor Potieria. Um, Another tough one to call. Like Potieria has experience, but Bellato hasn't lost to anyone not named Vitor Petrino, right? If not for that that tank of a human, the dude would be undefeated. So it's tough to say. We've seen Ihor struggle against some folks. He had that infamous win over an old ass Shogun, um, and otherwise like huge win streak. But like, who are these guys and what fight organizations are these? You know, um, definitely the king of the regional scene, but when it comes to the UFC, getting KO'd by Nigumarianu and Allberg. Not terrible, like not terrible fighters to get knocked out by. Both very dangerous in their own rights, but I mean, it doesn't look good on paper. And if they can knock this dude out, I don't see Hidalgo having much of a problem doing so himself. Um, Next is sort of another frickin' coin toss, right? We've seen Steve Garcia look really good in there, and we've seen him struggle. Um, this Melky Zael Costa, um, he's looked really good. Like he looks like a very scary dude. Um, Dropped one to Moises, but I mean, coming into that, he looked pretty scary. Um, it's a tough one to call. Um, Costa's really good with like distance management and creative with his striking. So I think Garcia is susceptible to maybe getting caught by something. But if Garcia can dictate the pace or the direction of the fight, then he could have some success, right? But yeah, it's a tough one to call overall. Um, as are most most of the damn fights on this card. But gun to the head, I'm saying Melky. Melky gets it done. Love Steve Garcia, um, but can't pick with my heart. You know, gotta use the brain. Um, and next, like, come on now. Drakkar Close has been sort of a staple of the division for a while, albeit not fighting very frequently. Um, yeah, he's been in the UFC for going on 7 years and is only, well, he's fought 9 times or so in that 7 years. That's all right, I guess. But um, anyways, he had that really bad knockout, um, loss to Beneil Dariush. But I mean, other than that, he's looked pretty damn good. Like a lot of his wins have aged well, like Lando Venata, Bobby Green, Christos Giagos kinda turned out to not be so good, but um up until he got KO'd in that Dariush fight, like he had Dariush hurt really bad in that fight before he got knocked out. Um so I don't know. Joe Selecki, let's take a look at Joe. He's 30. Um huh. I'm going with Jakar on this one. Let's see. So what have we got so far? Got Horth, Turman, Bellato, Close. We're picking all favorites by the looks of it. Um, this one, y'all are gonna call me crazy, but I mean, Zach Reese didn't look so hot. He got the finish in his last fight on the Contender Series, but he showed some showed some holes, we'll say. Well, I mean, Brundage has just looked like he's going in there for a paycheck for his last like 3 fights. He got beat up real bad on in the last three, and then the most recent one, he took he took an out on the illegal elbow. I believe that was to the back of the head, right? And that was kind of a controversial call because there wasn't really much of a warning, if I'm not mistaken. But it was a pretty devastating elbow to the back of the head. Um, yeah, I mean, he's fought tough competition, but he's kind of just looked like he wants out of there, you know? Just flip flops, wins and losses. He was on a little bit of a streak when he first started, but I don't know if if the fight is still in him. It's a really tough one to call because if Brundage shows up, he's got a good chance of potentially beating Reese, either clipping him because he's shown holes in his striking defense, or taking him down because he's shown that he can get taken down fairly easily. So I don't know. Um, I'm probably gonna take a look at the weigh-ins whenever I get the chance. Those are probably going on right now or had just wrapped up not too long ago. Um, but I would like to take a look at the official weigh-ins, see how they're looking, and make my call off that. But I might leave this one off. If anything, I might take Brundage at less money just to skew the parlay a little bit. Um, then we've got Misha Tate and Julia Avila. I mean, or Avila. I don't know how it's pronounced. I've heard it different ways. I think it just depends on depends on if they were born in the U.S. or okay with people mispronouncing their last name or not. Um, but Julia's looked very good. Um, Should have lost to Sarge, but I mean that's not terrible. Otherwise, I mean, she's got some wins over some pretty big names. Not the most active fighter. This is actually her first fight in over 2 years. Um, and Misha Tate. Hmm. Quite a ways past her prime, if we're being honest, but fuck man. And she looked pretty bad in her last one. Um hmm. Another tough one to really bet on here. It looks like they've got Julia as a slight favorite. I don't know. Let's put money on Misha there for the time being. These two in particular here, my opinion may change, or my pick may change based on how they look on the scales. Um, oops. This next one, I mean, most people probably have a pretty sour memory of Stoltzfus because he got front kicked KO'd in like 10 seconds by Abus Magomedov. 19 seconds, sorry. Um, Lost to Dawkins. Ugh. Vieira, Mearshart, or Mershart. God damn. Um, that's funny. I'm like, oh, he's got a win over Joe Pfeiffer, but it was an elbow injury. Hmm. Sorry, I'm just kind of silently. I'm uh, I'm doing a lot of thinking here. I mean, I don't think Huna deserves that big of a favorite. Shit. Let's see how that affects the parlay, and all. We'll flip some things around and see what we can do. But Guida Silva, Brady Gastelum, Font Figueredo. These are all tough fights to pick. Like um Silva's kind of struggled against even like top 15s. Like who has he fought? Hackprest, Ricky Glenn, Tsarukyan, loss. Vince Pichel, loss. Um, like he doesn't have any really big name wins on his record, you know. Um, seems like whenever you come across anyone that has any sort of a ranking or a name, um, it seems like he's coming up short. And then Clay Guida, that is such a crazy record. um, I don't know. It's another tough one. I think Silva is going to be heavily favored. Like, what are the odds here? I'm gonna put Guida down here just to spice it up a little bit. Then we've got Brady and Gastelum. Let's see. I mean, welterweight Gastelum could very well be our next legendary fighter. It's a possibility because he's always been small for middleweight. Um, Brady's a pretty huge welterweight though. Um, coming off a pretty bad staph infection and surgery. I don't know. I like Gastelum, but the odds make it pretty tough. you know, um, it's not a huge payoff, and it's not a huge likelihood because bef- I mean before he lost to Bilal, Brady was looking really good. Um, I had some really high hopes for him. I think a lot of people did. Uh, but in any event, we move on. Font and Figueiredo. I think so. At first, I'm like, Font's huge. Font's really tall and rangy. And then I looked, and Font's only 5'8". Figueiredo's 5'5", mind you. Um, but I think their reach is probably pretty similar. Um, it's going to be interesting to see. I think we're going to see Figueiredo um, like try to like flurry in with big fast combos. Um, but Font's got really strong fundamentals, so we'll see how the two styles hold up against one another. Um, I feel like Font sort of fights a more composed fight where Figueiredo's just a wild man. Um, could potentially get caught coming in. I think Font's a rightful favorite in this, although it's the first time we're seeing Figueiredo at bantamweight, so it's going to be again tough to make a call because like that whole record underneath his name there, it perhaps is irrelevant up a weight class. So next we've got Bobby Green and Jalen Turner. Bobby Green had a little dust up in the fighter hotel from what I saw on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Um, so I don't know how much that will affect the fight, but Bobby Green's a tough guy. He's tough to get past in general. Jalen Turner has had some setbacks in recent history, and I don't know. I think Bobby Green's really riding that momentum of KOing Brant Dawson. He's got the belt on his mind. He wants to provide for his family. He's got a fire lit under his ass, and I think he's going to be a really tough guy to beat for Jalen Turner coming in on short notice. But we move on. The main event, Tsarukyan and Dariush. Um, let's see. Let's put our picks down here. Dariush still a plus 240 underdog. Um, I mean, the safe pick is probably going to be Tsarukyan, but a fairly likely underdog, maybe the likeliest underdog victory on the card is like I'm probably going to go with Dariush, right? Like if this crazy parlay were to materialize, let's say, yeah, a $10 bet would would net you 45K. Again, fairly unlikely. Got to keep that in mind. A lot of these fights are more up in the air than the odds dictate here, or the odds. Yeah, there's some. There was something in my mind there, but it's just not working. Not as sharp as it usually is today. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think those are pretty good picks. I mean, some of those I'm pretty nervous about, or I would be pretty nervous about. But in terms of maximizing the the plus monies, if you were going to try to do a full card parlay, I think that that would probably be one of your best options, unless you just want to go down the card and pick favorites. But we know that it's rarely the case that all favorites pull through, um, especially in the fight game. It's so variable, and there are a lot of things that go on in camp that we don't see. A lot of things that go on with fighters' bodies. You know, maybe they got an injury, maybe they woke up with a tummy ache the day of the fight. Um, Maybe the weight cut was particularly rough. There are a lot of variables, and that's why betting on MMA is, I mean, probably not very smart in terms of a sports betting perspective. But if you were if you were to bet some money, that's probably where I'm gonna bet my money. Those are probably the picks that are gonna get put down. I might toss a couple of other little parlays, like maybe Dariush by knockout, um, maybe even in the first round. That's probably like a plus fucking like 1200. Um, Actually, let's look. We've got DraftKings up right now. Let's take a look here. Let's see, Dariush plus 2500. Well, Yeah. So I think that's might that might be a little something that I sprinkle some cash on. Um, but I digress. They're going to be good fights. There are a lot of there are a lot of matchups on the card that like violence. An exciting fight is like there's no other way for some of these matchups, right? Um, yeah, it's going to be wild. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. I hope I didn't drag this on too long. I might try to cut it down a little bit, but love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe if you do so wish. I would greatly appreciate it. And have yourselves a good day. Enjoy the fights. Bye bye.